civic history. I'd like to apologize first for the lack of uploads. As you know, or noticed by now, I try to upload at least twice a week. But there's been some winter storm rolling through my area, and I lost power for a couple of days, and I thought so. I didn't want to make our generator work any harder than it had to. I wouldn't upload, but I'm back for now. Hopefully, we don't get any more storms that knock out our power. Uh, and today we'll be discussing anarchism, the school of thought that Peter Kropotkin famously called the left wing of socialism. So let's get to it. Uh, Anarchism is a branch of socialism or socialist organizing that could be put into a broader term known as Libertarian Socialism, or it's a term at the time for socialism without the state. And this is a very poli-sci and philosophy intensively video. I'm just warning you all now. Essentially, libertarian, which we associated today, is not really the meaning that was popular at the time. Libertarian means those who meant at the time was seen as more as those who wish to liberate themselves from the oppression caused by capital and the state. So, a little bit of history for you. So anarchism, here's its dictionary definition. It's the anti-authoritarian political movement, rejection of hierarchies that are unjust. That's a key word there, because they do acknowledge that, yes, there does have to be some government. Key principles: self-management, self-govern, voluntary cooperation institutions, statelessness, also the need for the ability to freely associate with groups that you wish to, and that the state is the king of unjustifiable hierarchies. Actually, if you want a very good and comedic definition of anarchism, if you've ever seen the movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and King Arthur comes upon the peasant, the anarcho-syndicalist commune peasant who screams out, "Help, help, I'm being oppressed," and that women giving swords to you that they found in a swamp is no means for a system of government. Watch that clip. It actually gives a pretty great definition. So this is a key thing in both anarchism and Marxism, the two main schools of far left thought, is the free association of producers. That after the socialist revolution, however that may look, and the workers finally own the means of production, the people, i.e. the workers, will be able to freely move between and work for whatever firm, not really, whatever the management of production looks like. They'll be able to freely move between them without the constraints that capital gives them. So organizing, the revolution should look more like a collection of decentralized cells, I guess would be a good way to look at it, as opposed to the vanguard party that was, in the Russian Revolution. Think of like an 80s crime flick with riots. That's the best way I've always thought of like what the anarchist revolution would look like. So the first little break in anarchism, or sub-school of anarchism we're going to look at, is mutualism, founded by Joseph Proudhon, a Frenchman. He believed that an anarchist society should be a stateless society, and that its economy will end up being a market of various workerly owned firms. So you'll have a market socialist society without a state. There's also some interesting stuff on property being only what you currently are using would be property, and then when you're no longer using it, it's fair game. But read his writings. There's some. There's a link I have to. I'll put links in the description for the two libraries that have all these people's writings. Then there's the school that came along in the era of Marx, which is collectivist anarchism, founded by Mikhail Bakunin. And this is just an overarching term. It doesn't really mean much of it. It just means, a more socialistic sorry, not socialistic. Well, it is socialist, but a more anti-market form of economics under anarchism. This is, by the way, if I didn't already say it, I can't remember, is Mikhail Bakunin. So this is the big one, Anarcho-Communism, founded by Peter Kropotkin. Uh, he wrote that famous book called Mutual Aid, A Factor in Evolution. But he believed that you'll get an anarchist society. I don't know why this anarcho-communist flag has the Trotskyist hammer and sickle, but I don't know. This is the one I found. I thought it looked cool. He believed that the best way to achieve an anarchist society would be a stateless society and communism. Now, I know there's some people going, but communism means give everything to the government. No, it doesn't. It's just a vague set of principles that Marx synthesized from earlier communists that was like, there won't be a state eventually, currency won't exist, uh, private property won't exist, personal property will. It's a very confusing distinction. Uh, direct democracy will be a thing. So he took it and developed what he dreamed up a society built on those principles that's achieved through an anarchist revolution, as opposed to a Leninist one. There's Anarcho-Syndicalism. This is actually used to be very common in the United States with the IWW, the International Workers of the World, uh, and the CNT, the Confederation Nacional Trabajador, or the National Confederation of Workers. And this is a form of anarchism that sees society achieving socialism through a revolution led by workers in the unions. Uh, this was a popular form of anarchism during the Spanish Civil War. Maybe I should do a video on the Spanish Civil War. Let me know in the comments below if you think I should. By the way, this video is also just like an overview of these. I could do a video on each of these sub-philosophies on their own. Eco-anarchism is an anarchist philosophy built on the principles of eco-socialism and achieving them through an anarchist revolution. So, nonviolence mostly, grassroots democracy, ecology, and equality, mixed with the anarchist method of organizing. Indigenous anarchism is the idea that indigenous societies should seek resistance to colonial oppression through an anarchist or model, and that many indigenous societies in the Americas are somewhat based on a proto-anarchist belief. And actually, Karl Marx, when he was doing his research for writing Capital and Grundrisse, discovered that many natives in the Americas uh, practiced a society that he called proto-communism. Anarcho-feminism states that the best way for women to achieve liberation is to go through an anarchist model of resistance against the patriarchy and capital and the state, which are all interconnected. Christian anarchism is essentially the idea that the way Jesus would want you to live is in an anarcho-communist society. The Diggers, with a D, Digger, practice this. There's a whole joke in the YouTuber Philosophy Tube. I will link their channel in the description. They're a great YouTuber about a bunch of Brits during the English Civil War doing communism on a hill. And this one I like. It's kind of a meme ideology, if you will, but it's the Pirate Utopia. And it's that pirates living in Libertalia, the mythical pirate settlement, and more realistically, the Pirate Republic in Nassau, developed a primitive form of anarchist societies based on democracy and shareholdership. I just like it because I think it looks cool and it's funny. Uh, then I hear someone going, but what about anarcho-capitalism? It's bullshit. It doesn't work. You need a state for money because without it, you don't have anything to issue currency that is broadly agreed upon. That there's no other way. It's literally just you can't have capital without a state. So I know some of you also be asking, but what about Antifa? Are they anarchists? There are anarchists in Antifa, but they are not an anarchist group. They practice some principles of libertarian socialism like decentralization, but there's also Marxists. There's also plain old liberals. If you've ever spoken on like a anti-fascist forum, you'll find there's people across the political spectrum on there, from center-right people to far left, as Lula da Silva once said, and Joe Biden later affirmed, democracy is a far left to center-right coalition. An anarchist society, it depends on who you ask what it'll look like. This is a good one. You got even though this is, I think, a definition of how QAnon works, which I don't like, but it's essentially decentralized, stateless, egalitarian, democratic society. Uh, since you can't call them states, I would prefer to call them settlements, but many people just use the term collectives. The one that I find the most interesting on there is Rojava, which is the autonomous zone of northern Syria, also the Kurdistan up there. Um, it's an interesting thing. I'd recommend looking up that in your spare time. Also, the Zapatista Autonomous Zone and the Revolutionary Catalonia. Those are another interesting anarchist movements, especially Zapatista because they blew up the Volkswagen factory's pipeline once in Mexico. These are the two on the left there. Sorry, on the right there. Those are the two libraries I will list in the description with another one. And thank you all for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye. Oh, wait, before I go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.